Hello, and thanks for joining us for tonight's Chancellor Town Hall. I'm Scott Francis, the president of the ECU Alumni Association, and I'm happy to welcome you this evening to bring you this opportunity with Chancellor Philip Rogers and Dr. Rebecca Rogers. Wherever and however you're joining us, thank you for making us a part of your day. As we get started, I want to share some quick ground rules and format information with you. I should say first that we are recording this session and it's being broadcast so that our friends who can't be here right now can access it later. So please note that it will record our screens. Tonight, Chancellor and Dr. Rogers will spend some time letting you get to know them. They will then answer some of the questions that you sent ahead of time when you registered for the event. Following that, we'll ask some of the questions received in the Q&A chat from all of you. At any time during the program, you can ask a question in the Q&A chat by clicking on the bubble at the bottom in the user menu at the bottom of your screen. Those questions will be sent directly to the Q&A moderator. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can, and with so many pirates here, we may not get to all of them. Thankful in advance for your understanding. And now, without further ado, we'll get started and begin by saying hello to our Vice Chancellor for Advancement, Mr. Chris Dibba, to introduce our honored guests and begin our session. Thank you for joining us, and go Pirates.
Thanks so much, Scott, for that introduction, and thanks to the ECU Alumni Association for being the host of tonight's event. Really, mostly, I want to thank all the attendees. We've got several hundred people who've been able to register and join us this evening, and I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. You know, we really wish we could be in person. We wish we could be either on campus or in your community. But we know why we're not able to do that. But, you know, there's digital opportunities that have been presented to us because of this pandemic, and we're going to take advantage of those. Tonight is the first of 4 evenings where we're going to have some town halls, talking to the Chancellor, in this case, talking to Dr. Rebecca Rogers as well. We're having 4 of those across the region, across the state, really across the country. We wouldn't be able to reach out as far and wide to Pirate Nation without the Zoom technology and the things that we've become so familiar with. But tonight we're focused on Eastern North Carolina, and a lot of what we'll talk about is the region, and so I thank you for joining us. So we're thrilled to have 2 pirates who've come home. I'm going to let them sort of run with their backstory and those kind of things in just a moment. I am not going to take a lot of time to do formal introductions because some of us know them, or some of you have already seen the press releases. So we're going to let the questions sort of guide the conversation. Just repeating what Scott just said, we've got a lot of questions, and I've tried to cull them down. I've tried to merge them together. I apologize if we don't get to your question right away, but we'll do our best to fit them all in. So just be patient and really just enjoy the conversation. I'm monitoring the chat room, and we'll bring those questions. So let's not delay anymore. Let's go right to Chancellor Rogers and Dr. Rebecca Rogers. And I'm just going to let that simple question that says, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've got deep roots in the area, so tell us about those ties to the community and just some introductions.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's great to be with everybody tonight. A simple question, but a complex answer. There's a lot to talk about through all of this good work. First of all, great to know that there's so many pirates on board here tonight. We can't wait to meet all of you in person. As he said, being together digitally is the second best option, and we can't wait to get back to normal soon. It's been a big day for the Rogers family. We started out early with a couple of rambunctious little boys in the house, and Rebecca and I got out the door, and we've spent the whirlwind of a day talking with all the great boards and foundations of ECU. So we met with the Women's Roundtable this morning, had a chance to connect with the Medical and Health Sciences Foundation, Alumni Association, Pirate Club, even went out to football practice. So I just got home, got the boys some food, sent them off to their grandparents. It's finally a quiet night in the house, and we're glad to spend it with our pirate family. And I know you're happy to be here too.
Yeah, I am happy to be here.
It's gonna be great. So for us, this is officially day 9 on the job. Unofficially day 99. We made the transition down from Alexandria, Virginia with our family after we were announced on December the 15th. We're happy to be home. We're literally here at home tonight, and just excited to be able to think about what the future holds for Pirate Nation. You asked about our family. It's the center of our lives. we're here today because of our family. My great grandmother attended East Carolina Teachers Training School. I've had countless family members attend ECU. It's in our blood. I even attended summer school here one summer, took a philosophy course, and got pretty lucky that it was pass-fail, so I could send a passing grade back to my alma mater. But family's critical to me. I think every generation shapes the next, and I was very clear with the board and the search committee that I intend to be a very family-first, family-focused person as a part of this role that we're in. And I want to instill that type of culture at ECU as a part of this university. So you'll get to see our family a lot. You get to see them on campus. I hope you'll say hello when you see us. And we've already started that work. We've been out and about on the mall with Pirates Aboard and meeting prospective students and families. And I think the person you're going to be most interested in getting to know is right here next to me. You should tell them all about yourself.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Rogers. When you see me, please just call me Rebecca. I have a long history at ECU as well, all the way from birth until I guess now. So my dad and my sister and my uncle and so many others, my actually third cousin went to TC back in the day and was a graduate. So my life has been dedicated to ECU growing up, and it's been something I've been really proud of my entire life. And I can literally say my entire life because I've known this university my whole life. I have 2 degrees from here. I have my undergraduate degree in psychology and minor in classical studies. And I have my master's degree in health communication from ECU as well, which led me to pursue my doctorate degree, just a love of learning. So right after I went to undergrad here, I worked for 1 year in the admissions office and recruited high school students up and down the East Coast from North Carolina to Connecticut to want to come to ECU as a student. And that was really rewarding. It was me by myself in a state white van and a bunch of materials. And for 2 or 3 months, I was gone. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. So we feel very happy to be back home. We know what we're getting into, and we're very excited about the future of ECU.
I love that that the way you said that you're back home. Every one of us on this call this evening has a first memory or an early memory of ECU. No matter if it was the first time you stepped foot on campus as a freshman, or maybe it's in both of your cases as children. So and I've heard some of the fun stories around football games and early memories there. Can you both share some of those early memories of ECU?
You should go first. You have some of the best.
Okay, I'll start off. So some of my first ECU memories are honestly when I was very, very little, being drugged to the ECU football games, rain or shine. The Page family was there. Literally rain or shine, and me and my sister might have been in the Pirate Club because it was torrential downpour. My dad was still in the stands cheering on the Pirates. So we would even go to 7 o'clock football games and then go back to Greensboro, my hometown, that night, and then go to church next morning. We were extraordinarily dedicated people. So one other fun fact that people may not know about me is that going to the football games, my family used to carry the old cannon before the ROTC would handle that. So we had the unofficial cannon in the back of our car in the trunk, and we would have our family friend. It was his cannon, and he would bring it, and then he was the one that would fire it after a touchdown. So that was a really fun thing that we did.
Much safer with the ROTC now, of course.
Yes, much safer. I wouldn't put it in the back of my car. Let's see. Other like just sweet little memories I have are getting bee stings at Dowdy Thicklin. And I would, whenever you could smoke cigarettes in the stadium back then, the people in front of us would give us tobacco off of their cigarette or cigar, and I would put it on my bee sting, and it would help soothe the sting. So a lot of great experiences. Another great experience was going to the Peach Bowl back in '92. I was 7, and I was on the field watching after the win, of course. And this is the David Garrard and Steve Logan era, and that was just really, really fun. I have really good memories of the bowl games at ECU. And then last, I'll just conclude with the ambassadors on campus. And I was an ambassador at ECU for 4 years, and that was one of the best decisions I've made in my life, just to be able to serve ECU and to provide for the university in that way. And that was just a really, really, really great experience for me.
Yeah, Chris, mine was a little different. I grew up in Greenville, and so I was a Greenville boy and experienced ECU as a child in this community. And ECU was the only game in town. It still is in some ways. There's too many memories to count. I'll hit a couple for you. Like Rebecca, a lot of them surfaced around athletics, but there are also a few related to the arts and some of the cultural aspects of Greenville and ECU that I took advantage of. I spent a lot of time in Wright Auditorium at performances and plays and other events. And fun story, when I was 16 years old, I just learned how to drive. I was going with my family to a performance of the Nutcracker, and I was meeting them there, and I was late. And I was looking for a parking space around campus, and I pulled in front of the Spillman building without looking at any of the signs. And I pulled into one of the spots that apparently, I didn't know, said reserved for Chancellor only. And I came out of the Wright Auditorium afterwards, and my car was gone. It was towed. And so maybe it was a little bit of foreshadowing that I would be in this role one day, that now I can officially park in that spot. You know, when you grow up in Greenville, you all feel the impact in the fall when the students arrive back on campus. There's this new sense of energy in town, a new purpose. Greenville comes back, and it has a huge impact and a tremendous presence in the community. It certainly affected me in many positive ways growing up.
I love those questions. Really realize how full circle things go. So thank you both for sharing those. Some of the questions that came in pre-registration really is about your career path. So now we know your Greenville experience, we know you're back, but there are a lot happened in between. And so share with us a little bit of that professional path that, in your case, Philip, that makes you Chancellor today, and Rebecca, that makes you, you know, I know you've been on faculty in the past and things like that. We'd love to hear some of those professional accomplishments.
Why don't you start, Philip?
Yeah, I'll kick this one off. Happy to. It was destiny, I think, for me to be a university administrator based on my family background, and ultimately, I think it was destiny to be ECU's chancellor. And I want to be very, very clear about that. Not just chancellor of any institution, ECU's chancellor. And that was important to me, to come back home and to give back to a place that has shaped my life in so many ways. And I'll be happy to say more about that later if we have the opportunity to talk about mission and student success and all those things that are top of mind for me right now. But let me paint just a quick picture that sets the stage. My great-grandmother was a teacher. My own mother was Dean of Students, Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs at Pitt Community College for many years. My sister works in university career development, professional development. My beautiful bride here is a university professor, has a PhD in leadership. So to say that higher education is a part of who we are is a huge understatement. It's a part of our whole family. I told Ann Wall, who's the city manager of Greenville, a while back, that I really wanted to be a city manager, I thought, growing up. Interesting career path, right? That didn't work out. And the late, great, wonderful human being that he was, Austin Bunch, hired me to work at ECU as a policy analyst. And at the time, I'd been there for about a year or so, and Steve Ballard, then Chancellor of ECU, walked in my office and said, "We're in the midst of a budget crisis. My legislative liaison is leaving the university. I need you to step into that role." And I naively, of course, said would be happy to do that. And he quickly followed up by saying, "But you can't leave the policy analyst position either. I need you to do both jobs full time. We can't afford to hire two people." Did that for a couple of years. He came back in my office, closed the door behind me, and said, "My chief of staff is leaving the university. I need you to take on the chief of staff role." And of course, once again, I eagerly said yes. And he quickly followed up by saying, "But you need to keep the state relations role. You need to keep the policy analyst role." And that's how I earned the gray hair that I have at a young age here. So doing 3 jobs and a doctorate degree over the course of 4 or 5 years. So felt very grateful for that opportunity. Went off to the American Council on Education, had a front row seat for some of the most innovative higher education practices in the field and in the country, and really enjoyed my work there, Chris. But I'm a hands-on kind of higher education guy, and I really like to be in the midst of campus. I like to feel the energy firsthand. So returning to ECU was a calling. It was a no-brainer, and I would have turned down any other job in the country to take this one. And it was very personal. And we've done this as partners, and Rebecca's been a part of that journey too.
Okay, so I'll give my little bit. I wanted start off by saying that Philip probably would not be at ECU again if it was not for me. I just want to start that out with. That his mom actually introduced us, and it took me about 2 or 3 years to actually go on a first date with him. And had Philip had just gone on by himself, he would have been somewhere in Raleigh or Chapel Hill or Charlotte, and never to have been landed back in Greenville. So my roots are really because, you know, he owes me and I owe him a little bit. So we are a team together. So I want to also say that teaching and leadership are also a really deep passion of mine. I fell in love with teaching in my master's program, and it was not until really my master's program that I developed a love of learning, and it took a while to develop that. I fell in love with reading, and that led me to pursue this lifelong journey of learning. And I want to be, you know, an old lady and still learning, you know, still trying to learn more about the world and life. And that solidified my journey to go from my master's to my doctorate degree in leadership. Another thing that Philip and I both, that's kind of aligned our paths here, is that we both have a strong sense of understanding of the eastern part of North Carolina and also ECU's mission. And it's so weird how I was an ambassador and I'm in this role now, because at ECU ambassadors, you're taught ECU's mission and how to serve the university as the official host for the school. So long story short, this has been a dream of ours for a really long time. It really feels great to be home. It feels very surreal still. And when I think of the motto, Sewere, which means to serve, it captures the spirit of ECU in the community. And one thing that I really, really want to harp on is that we all should come to the table with a servant leadership mindset, attitude, spirit, and heart. And that by nature puts people in this area at the center of everything that we should do. And it should be a should, because we should strive to always do more as a servant leader. And that's what makes the ECU community so special. And just know that Philip and I are both here, ready to serve and give back to a place that gave us like so much. And so we feel very, very honored and very grateful to be sitting here in this role today. So thank you.
Yeah, what a great answer. I tell you, that you almost want to encapsulate it right there and say, good night, thank you, because that is such a great answer. But we're not done yet. I've got a few more questions. But Rebecca, thank you for that. That was just a great answer. Philip, you already explained your deep ties and your professional ties back to ECU. So that means you've had close relationships with leadership in the past. I think I speak for all of us when we talk about how grateful we are to Ron Mitchelson and his leadership most recently and serving our university, but he served in many ways. And I know you're working closely with him and the leaders. So you come in sort of not so new, but at the same time, it's also the second week for you. And we've got to give you that pass. We've got to recognize. But some of the questions we've had is sort of, what does that first 100 days look like? What are those first, 6 weeks, if not 6 months? What's that early period going to look like for your administration as you set the sails forward?
Yeah, great group of questions coming in. And as I said at the very beginning, today officially marks day 9 on the job, but unofficially, it definitely feels like day 99. We got going on December the 17th, literally the day of the announcement, and have been running 100 miles per hour ever since, all ECU, all the time, all purple and gold. And it's been a tremendous amount of fun. We've made that move down from DC to North Carolina with our family and worked through that transition. It's been a good one. It's been a positive one. And I have indeed engaged and relied on very heavily Chancellor Mitchelson. And you're always going to hear me call him that, Chancellor Mitchelson. He served with this institution with incredible distinction. And we need to make sure he hears that from us, how much we appreciate his servant mentality. Rebecca was just talking about the important qualities and attributes of a servant leader, and he's certainly someone in our sphere who embraces those qualities in every way. I've joked with some of the groups that I spoke with today. Ron's office is on the 2nd floor of Spillman. He's going to be with us through June. And I told him on my first day that I was hoping to build a trap door in the second floor just above my office so I can pull the string and he can land down anytime I have a big question or a worry or someone that I need to vent to for a few minutes whenever things get tough. But the first 2 weeks have been exciting. We've had a great time. I've spent a considerable amount of time with the senior leadership team, as you mentioned, but I've also been very intentional about engaging directly with the faculty, the students, the staff, members of the community. We had a great lunch yesterday with a couple folks in the community, alumni and many others. And part of my reason for being so direct about going to the source of the Pirate Nation is I really want to hear people's stories. I want to hear it directly from them. Students have already seen me walking the mall. I've been through the student center almost every day. I've been on campus and out in the community as much as possible at Good Pirate baseball games and other places. So I hope if folks see me and they connect with us in the community, they please introduce themselves, say hello, and we want to meet as many Pirates as we possibly can. You asked about the first 6 months or so on the job, Chris, and a lot of what frames how I'm thinking about the first 6 months, even the first year, even the first 5 years, is really three big categories of my personal leadership philosophy related to ECU and our vision. And the first and foremost is one focused on being a good listener and making a commitment to learning as much as I possibly can in these first 6 months. I know that when I walk in the door here into this role, I don't have all the answers, and I actually think that's okay. I think it's an advantage because it gives me the opportunity to listen, to learn, to embrace the Pirate community, and to hear the stories through their lenses gives me the opportunity to frame a vision for this institution that's reflective of our people and who we are and the long-term direction that we want to go. As I think broad term, over the next 6 months to a year, I've got three big areas that I want to focus on. One is ensuring that we remain a mission-aligned institution. Those campuses around the country that I've seen from my seat at the American Council on Education, we had 2,000 institutions that we worked with. Those institutions that woke up every day making decisions that begin, and end with their mission are the ones that have been successful. And you'll hear me talking a lot about the intersection of the institutional mission, the market that we serve in higher education, and then ultimately the margin that can drive in terms of impact across the future of this institution. So mission alignment is going to be a sole focus in the first 6 months. I'm going to follow that with a focus around the future. I want us to be a future-focused institution within that mission. COVID is changing everything we do, literally everything we do. And this environment of higher education in the post-COVID era is going to be dramatically different from what we experienced over the last 5 or 10 years. And ECU has to position itself to stay ahead of that curve and on target to be a strong mission-aligned place. So we're mission aligned, we're future focused. In order to deliver on that, we have to be an innovation driven institution. We have to be on the cutting edge of the best digital technologies and data analytics and business model strategies. And to be able to do all of that within a culture of agility is going to be core. So that's what's going to frame the big picture for me. And day one, we've walked in with COVID. We've walked in with managing a budget crisis, we can say, across the country, not just in North Carolina, but campuses across this country are facing economic pressures as a result of COVID. Some of those pressures are starting to be relieved a little bit. We can talk more about that later if you'd like. We want to laser in on the impact we can have on rural healthcare in this state and in Eastern North Carolina in particular. And of course, all the good things that bring the Pirate spirit together, like athletics and other cultural activities, are front and center for us as we take on this work.
Yeah, that's a great question. And as I listened to your answer, I was also paying attention to a bunch of chats that are coming in and thinking about the questions that had already come in. I'm going to try to take maybe 20 of these questions and condense it down to talk about mission. You said it, Rebecca said it, mission is mission. I mean, it's so important to be mission aligned. ECU has three commitments: student success, serving our public, and transforming our region, especially the audience here tonight talking about the region of Eastern North Carolina. We've had questions about student recruitment. I got a great chat here from fellow Rose graduate there, Philip, class of 2001, asking about student recruitment in the region and the importance of aligning with high schools. Also student recruitment from some of our underserved communities. and making sure that we're a diverse and very inclusive community. I know I threw about 15 things at you, but please talk a little bit about those three commitments of the mission of student success, serving the public, and transforming the region.
All right, great. First of all, thanks to my rampant friends out there. It's good to hear you. Glad you're watching. Glad you're tuning in. This is a special moment being back home in Greenville and seeing so many good folks from high school and middle school and elementary school and people we did all sorts of things with in the community. So really glad to be hearing from you and that you're a part of this conversation tonight. Chris, this is the question where you can sit back, you can relax, you can get comfortable. I can deliver a sermon on this topic over the next 45 minutes. I won't do it because it's my favorite topic. The mission, student success, public service, regional transformation. It's why I love ECU. It's why I applied for this job. It's why I wanted to be back home in Greenville. I literally traveled all over this country to higher education institutions. There's more than 4,000 in the United States. Ivy League institutions, public flagships, community colleges, liberal arts, for-profit, not-for-profit, accredited, degree granting, not accredited, you name it. No one that I've connected with, no institution that I've been to. And again, I've been to a lot of them. Nobody authentically delivers on these three commitments better than ECU. And you can trust me, I've seen it firsthand. Student success might be the hottest topic in higher education right now. We have to ask ourselves in that context, as my fellow Rose High graduate did, how do we get more students in the door? How do we keep those students at this institution? How do we graduate them in 4 years? And how do we do it with minimal debt to build their skills as a strong citizen, as a thinker in society? And then how do we send them out into the workforce or back to grad school or whatever they choose to do in life to give back to society and our economy? That's what student success looks like. It's why we're here at ECU. I met a senior finance major walking on the mall a couple of weeks ago. His name was Joshua, and introduced myself and asked him where he was going to his last finance class of the day. And he said, I just got a phone call about an hour ago and was offered my first job in my major in North Carolina. I'm moving to Charlotte, well-paying job in the finance industry, coming out of the business school. And he said, I'm going to use this degree and go back out into the workforce, and I'm going to take care of my grandmother. I'm going to be her caretaker as a part of this. And those are the stories we're all about at ECU when it comes to student success. Public service, that second component of our mission, that is historic to my DNA as a leader. It's historic to our founding as a university. And it was the part of our mission that motivated me to go into higher education on day one. And in this particular area, ECU is a strong, mature institution. And it was founded on that premise of serving people and serving society, particularly serving Eastern North Carolina. There's 29, 30 counties east of I-95, and that has to stay front and center. Rebecca talked about it earlier with this servant mentality of servant leadership, and it continues to sit at the center of my personal leadership philosophy. And then we can't leave without talking about regional transformation. I've benefited from that firsthand, from ECU's regional transformation efforts and mission as a young child growing up here. It's why we do the work we do. Think healthcare access, think cultural impact, think educational attainment opportunities for working adults, for more traditional students. We're the economic driver of the East. The list goes on. We can talk about the dental school service learning clinics. We can talk about the Heart Center and many other things. Eastern North Carolina's long-term success sits on our shoulders, and that's why regional transformation is going to stay at the top of my agenda and embedded in our mission.
So those have been big picture philosophical questions. Let me ask a very practical question that I know at least two, if not 3 or 4 people have asked about plans for the fall. Will we be open? What will athletics look like? Will our classrooms have students in it? What's the plan for the fall?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a quick one. I can answer this one quickly, unlike the sermon. Yes. Yes. We are striving with everything we have to open the fall semester with as normal operations absolutely as possible. That's our goal. I've spent countless hours out on the mall And every time you go out to where the cupola is, you can do a 360-degree turn on a nice day, and you can see about 6 or 8 tour groups walking around the campus. And I try to make an effort every time I'm in front of those tour groups to spend some time asking the parents and asking the prospective students why they want to come to ECU, and if they had that big magic wand that they could wave and be the chancellor, what would be one of the first acts they would do. And they all say, we're ready for that valued student engagement experience to come back. That's what we want to be a part of as freshmen, and that's what's going to make us say yes to this institution in some ways. So that's been heard loud and clear. We're making the right moves from a COVID precaution standpoint. The numbers are going down. I think we had something like 12 or 14 folks across the entire campus in isolation or quarantine space this week. The trend is moving in the right direction. And so I sent a memo to campus last week. If you haven't seen it, you can go to our website and check it out, directing all of our vice chancellors and our university leadership to begin the planning process with the goal of bringing campus back to normal in the fall. And sent another note today to the campus, notifying everyone that I had appointed a planning team that would drive the operations of that work. So we're going to be moving forward, I hope, in a positive direction if everything stays on path. I saw the governor's order that we're going to be able to open the athletic facilities, hopefully a little bit more moving into the fall and maybe even the summer here. So we're going to stay tuned for how we can be able to shape that future. But, you know, Chris, I think the maybe even the better question is what does the plan look like for ECU on the other side of the pandemic? Mm-hmm. The decisions that we're going to be making in the near future are going to have an impact for years to come. And I said I was on a call with about 15 college presidents last night around the country talking about this very fact, brainstorming together. We had the president of Georgia State and Southern New Hampshire University, and we had the executive director of the University Innovation Alliance, one of the biggest student success organizations in the country. San Jose State University, lots of public institutions were a part of this, and everyone agreed that the direction that higher education is going to be moving is in this emergence of what folks are calling a hybrid campus. This idea of reimagining residential education in what we've been calling a tech-enabled world. And creating really a tech-enabled student experience that doesn't just embrace hybrid instruction, online and face-to-face instruction, but is blended. It's immersive. It's a digital residential experience that connects all these worlds together and gives students options. And so I can tell you, I know these folks. They're my friends and my colleagues. Our competitor institutions around the country are moving into this particular market right now. And so I think ECU can be well positioned to be a leader in this space. And it's one of those future-focused items that wraps innovation around it that we need to be paying attention to that I was talking about earlier.
I'm a parent of a first-year student, and so let me thank you for being committed to that student success, to opening up and to providing that world-class education as it evolves and as it changes as a result of the way we deliver education. So thank you for that. I say that as a parent. So I've paraphrased a few questions. I'm going to actually read verbatim. Carol asked a great question about reputation so Carol says, as a two-time graduate of ECU as well as an employee of ECU, she's very concerned about ECU's reputation within the state after several years of poor press. However, outside of North Carolina, ECU has a better reputation. What are our plans to help educate those folks across North Carolina to how great we are, and how can Higher Nation help overcome some of these reputational issues?
Yeah, this was one of the topics that I spent a significant amount of time on at the American Council on Education. One of the assignments that I had early on in my tenure as senior vice president was to craft a new mission statement for the American Council on Education and to craft a new strategic plan, not just for ACE, but for American higher education. So we spent time all over the country talking with colleges and universities and stakeholders and parents and students and faculty and many others about what does the future of higher education look like. And so we wrote a plan for the future of American higher education. One of the core tenets of that plan was this concept that we called the need to affirm and strengthen the public's trust in higher education. And I think that's part of what we're getting to with this question. you're so right. There's been so many panic-inducing headlines, not just in North Carolina about us. There's been panic-inducing headlines all over the country about institutions of higher learning, public, private, large, small, you name it. Everybody's facing many of these challenges. And when you take a look at what the narrative is, the public narrative can be a negative one at times. But when you look at the data and you look at the research behind how the public views higher education, there's actually a pretty high favorability rating for the job that we're doing for our students and for the communities. It's when you take a look at the many different institutions in society, higher education ranks only second nationally to the military in its favorability rating among US citizens. So putting it into the national context, I think, is important. How do we do this at ECU? I'm going to go back to it every time. You're going to be tired of hearing me say it. We have to focus on our mission. We have to get aligned around that space. We have to do what we do best. And we have to laser in on preparing for the future of the higher education market. I talked about mission, market, and margin, and we have to figure out the right way to get those to intersect. And when we can do that, I can promise you people will take notice that the positive movement is taking place. I've seen it done all over the country. And at the core level, I think those of us as pirates have to stay unified at our base. We have to be able to speak with one voice on behalf of that mission. And we have to lean into that pirate spirit as only pirates can do, and stick together through thick and thin. And we'll come out on the other end in a positive fashion.
No, thank you for that. And Carol, thanks for that question. I thought that was a great question.
Yeah, thanks, Carol.
Turning a little bit to the health sciences, you mentioned that a little bit ago when talking about the region. The question is a little bit more focused on the research side. We've got the clinical component of the health sciences campus. That's not just medicine, but all of health sciences. So talk a little bit about research and how we're making it stronger, and sort of some vision for the health sciences as well as research.
It's especially critical right now as we're in the midst of a global health crisis. Our health sciences work has one of the more dramatic and intense and meaningful impacts on the region than anything we do. And there are tons of great examples of this in terms of how we deliver on that work. But the health support we provide is really critical to this region. I spoke with some of our state legislative leadership this week about that, and they see it. Our alums see it. Our citizens can feel it in their hearts, and they can literally feel it when we are serving them in the clinical space. I think one of the best examples of that was my time before I left ECU when I was chief of staff. I was integral in that process of bringing a new school of dental medicine to ECU, working with many colleagues in Eastern North Carolina to get it here. And I remember traveling out to the western part of the state and even to parts in rural Eastern North Carolina. I think at one point we went to a hospital where we opened up a dental service learning clinic. And to talk to those people about the impact that our health sciences infrastructure had on them was really moving because it changed their lives in a lot of ways. And it was particularly special for me to come into my interview for this role as chancellor and sit in front of a panel of about 15 students. And they went around the room and introduced themselves. And we got to one young man who was in the middle, sitting directly across from me. And Chrissy introduced himself as a second-year student in the School of Dental Medicine. And my heart stopped for a moment because I had never met a student in the School of Dental Medicine before. And that was a heart-pumping moment for me because it demonstrated that we're really making that core and critical difference in the state. Most recent example, response to the pandemic, education, research, clinical care. It's part of the way that we have been able to develop some stimulus funds to come into North Carolina and to ECU from the federal government. So as you said, much of that impact begins in the research space. Discovery in the scientific and the healthcare arena comes right there with that practice-based impact. And so that's why the life sciences and biotechnology building is so important, why it's coming out of the ground. It's where future scientists will grow their experiences and learn their trade. And it's the foundation of the long-term impact for ECU in the region. So we're going to leverage our research to drive economic development, social mobility, and well-being across the East. It's who we are. It's what we do.
It's what it was designed to do.
Exactly.
Sort of a follow-up to that. If you talk about the health sciences, you talk about the research component, you're really talking about the collaborative nature of what we do. I think we do that really, really well at ECU. I'm a little biased, but I think we've demonstrated that over and over again. So if that's happening at the academic and research level, we got a question. Phil here in Greenville. Phil's one of our great Pirates, a longtime volunteer that we know well. He's asked about the status of the School of Rural Public Health, and that represents a lot of that interdisciplinary effort that is so effective here at ECU. Can you talk a little bit about that and why that cross collaboration across academic units is so important?
Yeah, I call it bridge building in a lot of ways. It's vital to our success, and rural public health is right there at the center of our mission. And it might be one of the best examples of how we can bring our doctors and dentists and nurses and allied health professionals, our occupational therapists and physical therapists, and many others together in a strategic way to deliver on the healthcare needs of our region. When we have to leverage our many talents across the entire institution to be successful. I've seen it at ACE from some of the best campuses in the country that are able to take assets on one side of campus, connect them to assets on another side from different colleges and schools, and they can move them forward into innovative outcomes. And it really does help the community and the region thrive in very meaningful ways. One of the best examples on our campus might very well be the integrated coastal programs work that we do. Their vision is a complex one, but it's complex because of the interdisciplinary nature of it. It's an internationally recognized leadership organization that focuses on transdisciplinary coastal and marine research. You bring in education, you bring in engagement, you bring in scientific advances, you even bring in healthcare strategies. You pair those with the land-sea interface and helping coastal communities, and you bring this convergence of disciplines together, of the natural, social, and engineering sciences, of economics and hospitality and tourism. You bring in the health side of campus to impact it in the arts, and you can make a bigger difference when you work together. And that's going to be part of what we want to do is collaborating as a university to make the biggest impact.
So we've got a top 10 ranked baseball team. We've got a lot of pride in across all of our sports: football, men's and women's basketball, softball, soccer, lacrosse. We've got great athletics here at ECU. And I know, I don't think I'm the only one who really misses going to those arenas and those venues and sitting there on a fall day. Rebecca, I love those stories that you shared.
I've got more if you want them.
No, I know. I just love them, and I realize how much I miss them. And I'm so happy that at least we have hope and anticipation of getting back to those in the fall. Either one of you, can you speak to sort of what you think is maybe a little unique about the Pirate spirit in our athletic department? You've got experience at other schools. What's unique about what we've got here?
Well, I've said this in many venues, Chris, but I was that kid in Dowdy-Ficklin trying to catch those extra point balls coming through into the bone, what is now the boneyard, what was then just a big open space with grass and a sidewalk coming through it, and you could see the elementary school behind it. I was that kid in Minges cheering on the Pirates. I was at the sports camps within the institution in the summer as a child, and I have to tell you, I can't wait till we can come back to those traditional Pirate athletic experiences where all the fan base comes together. Because when ECU knocked off number 5 Houston in Minges Coliseum, that was one of those moments where I wished I could have taken a picture at center court with all of our students and texted it to my friend Renu Couture, who happens to be the president of the University of Houston, a good friend from my ACE days. And there's something about the bragging rights that I like bringing to the table as the new chancellor here. You heard it from Rebecca earlier. We all have a Pirate athletic story from the days that we grew up. She has more than anybody, and we could take the rest of the night and go through yours if you want to. But there's no fan like a Pirate fan. And if you haven't read Rebecca's recent profile story on the ECU website, you can hear some of those as we move forward. But you know, I was out at football practice tonight. Just got home before this event and spent some time with Mike Houston and Holton and some of the players and John Gilbert and the team. And we talk about this often with the athletics folks. It's not the most important aspect of our institution, but it is the part of ECU that people might come into contact with first. It's the part of ECU that creates community. It's the part of ECU that brings energy to Eastern North Carolina. It fires us up when the Pirates win, when we hear that cannon go off and around this state. So I think we're moving in the right direction with ECU's intercollegiate athletics program. John Gilbert and his team are doing a great job. We have terrific coaches. That football team today was disciplined. They were focused and they were having fun while they were doing it. So we want to see our student athletes performing in a positive way on the field and in the classroom. But most importantly, we want to see our athletics program do everything it does with integrity. So Pirate Nation, get ready for a big year ahead in the athletics space. We're going to bring it back and we're ready to win some games and make you proud.
And we're going to Omaha. I want to go to Omaha, so I'm going to go ahead and put that out there right now. Start making my reservation. I don't want to jinx it, but I'm feeling good. So anyway, if you'll allow, I'm going to turn our attention a little bit to some sort of future vision focused type things. Some of the questions I have related to are sort of simply related to your priorities for ECU, and that's a wide open question. So, you know, what are some of your priorities and where do you see us going?
Yeah, again, when I meet with the deans, when I meet with the vice chancellors and the executive council, when I meet with the board, I ask them their feedback and their advice on these things. And the biggest piece of feedback and advice I get is keep using those three words. Keep reminding us that we have to be mission aligned, we have to prepare ourselves for the future, and we have to do it all with innovation. And so then we ask ourselves, what does that mean, right? What does being future focused mean? What does being innovation driven mean? Well, we're doing great work with our Millennial Campus right now. I think that's one good example of a top priority of mine moving into this work, the Intersect East work that is unfolding. And we've seen campuses around the country like Arizona State, like Virginia Tech, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, even NC State and North Carolina that have really thoughtful partnership strategies around centennial or millennial campuses where they're able to partner with industry and business in effective and strategic ways. And I'm really interested in moving into that partnership space and finding opportunities where we can take a look around corners and develop alternative revenue strategies for growth within our institution. You know, we can talk about the legislative agenda later if we have time and you're interested. But if you look at things like the State Higher Education Finance Report that comes out every year from some of our colleagues around the country, higher education dollars from a state level are not necessarily increasing. So thinking through how we can backfill some of the lost dollars from the Great Recession with alternative revenue sources that we can bring to the table outside of state funding is going to be a major priority of ours. And then technology, a technology-enabled campus is going to be critical, especially right now. We need to figure out how we can leverage data analytics, how we can take digital learning to a different level. We've been a leader in distant learning, but things change when global pandemics happen and everyone has to be an expert in distance learning overnight. And a lot of other institutions have gained ground. So we have to get really serious about what that online space looks like for ECU moving forward. There's so many others, too many to name, that are going to be front and center for us, but those are just a couple of examples right off the bat, Chris.
Well, can I, excuse me, can I ask you to elaborate? You mentioned the legislative agenda. We've had that question from our audience. You teed it up. Jones Street is busy right now as we speak, and we know we have some capital projects. Can you speak to that?
We do. And I think one of the advantages of coming in as chancellor with my background is that I have a deep understanding of Fifth Street, got a deep understanding of Jones Street, and a deep understanding of how the federal government works to fund higher education. So it runs up and down that entire corridor. We've been very fortunate over the last year at ECU to have received stimulus dollars from the federal government to offset the millions of dollars in losses we've had directly as a result of the pandemic, primarily within our auxiliary and enterprise functions within the institution. So think parking and dining and housing. When you don't have students on campus because you're having to social distance and be away from each other, those operations aren't generating revenue. And so when I was at ACE, our team worked with Congress and with the executive branch and the federal government to try to bring in dollars to institutions like ECU. And we're on our third round of funding right now. That's been incredibly helpful. And we're going to be working to offset those operational losses. There were $120 billion across America, American higher education institutions, in losses that we've seen as a result of the pandemic. So it's been a tough year for the 4,000 institutions that higher education serves, and ECU's been in that context, but we've been fortunate to have some dollars to backfill that work. On the state side of the house, obviously enrollment growth funding is an important part of the dollars that the University of North Carolina System Board of Governors are requesting from our state legislators. That's how we get funding through the state of North Carolina to grow our institutions. It's been a while since our faculty and staff have had enhancements in their salaries in recent years due to some economic pressures. And so we're making a big ask to the legislature in that space. And of course, building reserve funds and capital projects. There was a bill filed to support a new medical education building in the legislature. Of course, we're very grateful for that signaling of support to the Brody School of Medicine and to ECU. And the governor's budget came out yesterday. And so we're taking a close look at that. That is pitch number one in inning number one of a 9-inning ball game. And so a lot changes between the time that the governor puts his budget out, the Senate will have it next, the House will follow. There's going to be many iterations of this budget process, but this first round, we're looking at some good potential investments in the Brody School of Medicine on the capital side of the house to get a new medical education building. And we'll have to see how that holds over the next couple of rounds with our legislative colleagues, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for success there.
Yeah, fingers crossed for sure. We're grateful for the state support, and we're pleased with the agenda so far. So thank you for that. Sort of one more question related to sort of vision and future. This is one of those good interview questions you ask candidates, but I think it's a great question that came across. You know, how pick a point in time, a year from now, 5 years from now, as you sit and you have a moment of relaxation and can ponder, you know, what does success look like? What do you reflect and say, this is going well? I'm really pleased. What does success look like at some point in the future?
So this won't shock you. I want to see real demonstrated movement on our mission. I want to see demonstrated unity among the pirate nation. I want us speaking with one voice in a passionate way, that pirates know how to speak. I want to see more students graduating with an excellent collegiate experience. I want that student experience to be the best in the country. And I want to see them going on to that next endeavor in life, whatever it may be, whether it's graduate school or a job or whatever they choose to do. I want to see them moving out with confidence and low debt and ready to take on the world. Finally, and this may be the most important one, and it hit home for me again last night when I was sitting around the digital table with 15 or so other presidents around the country. I want to see us break through as a real innovator, a real innovation leader in North Carolina higher education. I think there's a void to be filled there in our state. I think ECU can fill it, and we can do it. We're already in those conversations now. We've been a part of those national dialogues over the last couple of weeks, and I think being able to be on the front end and the cutting edge of that in terms of how we can better leverage technology like artificial intelligence to help us meet the needs of our students. We're doing it right now. We have a chat bot that our admissions team and our enrollment team uses to reach out to prospective students and interested students to try to push them through the finish line of completing an application or to help them get through the financial aid process. We've reached 18,000 prospective students with a digital artificial intelligence chatbot. And 7,000 of those students have engaged back and forth with it to get information. So if we're a future-focused university, we're one that's going to meet students where they are. And we're going to take technologies like that and scale them out so all of our students can take advantage of them in every aspect of the institution. That's what I want to see ECU look like in the future.
Well, thank you for that. I like that. A couple of quick hits. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to just rattle off a couple of real quick ones for both of you or one of you. It doesn't matter, whoever wants to field these, but I'm going to read them verbatim from the chat. I love the spirit of this question. Question is very, quote, what do you need from the community and how can we help you and your family?
I think we need as much support as we possibly can. Hearing you cheering us on, having confidence in us. Tell us what your vision is for the future of ECU. And I think you would probably say that we would want the community to embrace our family and our children.
For sure. Yeah, we have a 2 and 5-year-old, almost 3 and 6-year-old. And so, we left a place that we had a lot of young friends at, and we're ready to kind of embrace Greenville again with a family this time. So we left it without a family last time, and now we're coming in with kids. So it's a little bit different this time, for sure.
So our good friend Jim down I-95, I'm trying not to use last name just because, but we all know Jim's a good guy. He asked sort of a historical question that this says, how does it feel to sit in Dr. Leo Jenkins' office?
Oh my goodness. Well, look, Leo Jenkins said that there's only one place for East Carolina to go, and that's up. And that quote is just emblazoned in my heart every day when I walk into that office. And when you come into the Spillman building, you walk into the front door of the Chancellor's office, you take a left, and you go back to my office. And as soon as you walk in the door, there's a couch along the back wall. And above that couch, I was very intentional to have a portrait of Leo Jenkins, because I look at it as I think about decisions that I'm making. I look at it when I'm talking to students about the future of ECU. It's a symbolic effort for me to know that perhaps the greatest chancellor, one of the greatest chancellors in our history of an institution, is the spirit is with me in that room, and it's emotional even thinking about it. In fact, if you look behind us on the back of the wall, we have several Leo Jenkins paintings in the home here, and Rebecca spent a lot of time talking with the folks at the School of Art about ensuring that East Carolina University is felt in our home when people come to visit us and spend time here. And so, what do we have? 3 or 4 personal paintings of Leo Jenkins in the home. And
it's not of him; it's things he's painted.
Yeah, he's the artist. He's the artist.
He didn't paint himself. So, but yeah, there's certain things in the house that the School of Art has loaned that we're using here in the Chancellor's residence, and then there's other pieces of art, of course, that are at the university's main campus to kind of feel that presence of ECU's heritage and the rich culture of how it was founded.
It's something to walk into the office in the morning and see that painting of Leo Jenkins, but also to walk home at night and walk in the door and see something that he used his hands to create. And we have the Leo Jenkins Fine Arts Center, obviously. So it's very special. I'm grateful for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna let both Philip and Rebecca get the last word, but I want to thank all of our attendees, well over 200 tonight. And more importantly, this has been recorded, so we're going to leave it on the web so that folks who have very busy lives who weren't able to join us live this evening can definitely watch it. But I'm going to give Rebecca, Philip, you get the last word for the evening. Okay,
I'll start. Thank you all for joining in tonight and for listening to learning more about me and Philip and our vision for the university. This university, as if you're listening, I'm sure you know how special it is, and we hope it stays that way in your hearts. And we're very grateful for this opportunity to serve the university and to serve in this capacity. If you see us walking around anywhere, be it Beaufort, Morehead City, Greenville, Raleigh, please say hello. We would love to know who you are and have that connection. So thank you for being yourselves and for staying true to ECU. We appreciate it.
I'll be brief. Be loyal, be bold, always wear your purple and gold, and be a pirate for life.
Yeah.
Great to be with you, Chris. This has been a lot of fun.
Been great. Thank you very much. Scott, you're muted.
Pirates, thank you again for joining us this evening. It was a pleasure meeting Chancellor and Dr. Rogers, and it was an honor to share it with you all tonight. If you want to learn more about the Rogers journey and the Chancellor's developing vision and plans for the university, feel free to visit chancellor.ecu.edu. You can find tons of information there and the stories. We hope you'll continue to be engaged with ECU, either through the Alumni Association or another entryway to the university that you're passionate about. We appreciate you coming along with us both while we're apart and afterwards. Once again, thank you all for joining us. Thank you again, Chris Dibba, Chancellor and Dr. Rogers, for your time and sharing your pirate story with us. I look forward to seeing and hearing about the continued fantastic things that you do here at ECU. Until next time, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk soon. Go Pirates.